In the vast theater of life, there is an actor that few dare to be, the silent observer. The one who remains distant, calculating, knowing that the truth is rarely kind. Carl Jung, the profound expert of the human soul, left us a lesson forgotten by many. Not everyone deserves your kindness. Society has taught us that we must be good, kind, generous. But what happens when kindness becomes a veil, hiding our true nature? We are told that being kind is an act of virtue, but what we are truly doing is losing our essence, diluting our will. The uncomfortable truth is that not all human beings deserve our energy. Not all deserve our effort. Jung understood this perfectly. It's not about being cruel, but about recognizing that there are individuals who simply don't understand the value of what you offer. Excessive kindness, when you don't know who to give it to, becomes a weakness. And that weakness, in the wrong hands, can be your downfall. Think for a moment. How many times have you found yourself dragged by the need to please, to be accepted, to show your goodwill? You've given more than you had. You've lost more than you gained. Because true coldness is not the absence of emotion. It is the ability to decide to whom you give your warmth. It's time to wake up, to take control of your inner power, to stop being a slave to others' needs and start being the master of your own destiny. Coldness is not the absence of humanity. It is a conscious act of protection. A wall against those who try to take advantage of your kindness. It's knowing when to yield and when to withdraw. It's time to stop being the Good Samaritan in a world that doesn't appreciate it. Stop giving your kindness to those who don't value it, to those who only seek your vulnerability. Instead, use your energy for those who truly deserve it, for those who understand the power of who you are. Jung warned us about the shadow, that part of ourselves that we suppress in an effort to be good. But it is in that shadow where true power resides. Coldness is not evil. It is protection. Indifference is not cruelty. It is strategy, so wake up. Don't be a slave to the kindness imposed by society. Be the architect of your own destiny, carefully selecting those to whom you offer your energy. Because true freedom comes from controlled coldness, from understanding that not everyone has the privilege of your time, nor your presence. And remember, it's not bad to be cold. It's simply an art that, as Jung said, few understand. Subscribe to this channel if you like what you see, give it a like, and share. Doctrine 1. The Shadow. The shadow, according to Jung, is the darkest and most hidden corner of our psyche. That space without light where the aspects of our personality we fear facing lie. It is the part of ourselves that we never see, that we never wish to see. The shadow is not simply evil or perversion. It is everything we have rejected, everything we have suppressed because it does not fit our idealized image of the self. The shadow is the deep well of humanity, where the most primitive instincts, the rawest emotions, and the darkest desires are found. Awakening coldness is an act of facing this shadow. It is daring to accept that within us exists a part that is not good, that does not always seek to please or be loved. True coldness is not merely the control of emotions. It is the conscious rejection of the weakness that leads us to give more than we have, to be slaves to others' expectations. Coldness is the veil that allows us to maintain our distance, not out of cruelty, but out of strategy. It separates us from others because we have understood the cruel reality. Not everyone deserves our warmth. Not everyone deserves our kindness. The shadow is not something to eliminate, but to integrate. By bringing it out of the shadows and into the light, we free ourselves from the need to please everyone, from being that accommodating being who lives for the expectations of others. The shadow teaches us to be relentless, to cut off what is useless, to protect our energy from those who feed on our vulnerability. It is the coldness that takes form, not as an act of evil, but as a necessity for emotional survival. This awakening is not easy. It requires courage, because by facing the shadow, we face the darkest parts of our being. But it is only by accepting these parts, and using them strategically, that we can protect ourselves from those who seek to manipulate our kindness. Coldness, then, becomes an invisible armor that gives us the power to stay in control and to use our energy only when it truly matters. The shadow, far from being something negative, is the source of our hidden strength. By awakening coldness, we stop being mere puppets in the theater of life. We stop being those who bend to expectations and begin to be the ones who decide to whom we grant our presence, our kindness, and our energy. Coldness is not the absence of emotions. It is sovereignty over them. and only those who dare to face the shadow head-on are the ones who attain true power. Coldness, then, is the manifestation of a deeper power, of a clear understanding of what is at stake in every interaction. Those who have embraced their shadow understand that the world is not a place where everyone plays by the same rules. In every glance, in every word, a hidden intention lurks, and the naivete of being good with everyone only opens the door to exploitation. Being cold is not an act of insensitivity, but a conscious act of protection, an emotional barrier that rises to prevent others from feeding on our light without having the right to do so. It is not about hatred, but knowing when to withdraw the offer of our warmth, when to let others face their own darkness. It is in this awakening of coldness that we find true freedom. Freeing ourselves from the yoke of boundless kindness grants us control over our emotional destiny. The shadow, far from being something that should remain hidden, is the key to understanding human psychology in its purest, unadorned state. Only those who have allowed themselves to embrace their darker side can manipulate situations to their advantage, recognize the signs of manipulation, and be immune to the attempts of others to influence them. Coldness is not a defense, it is a strategy. The power of the shadow lies in the ability to withdraw emotionally, then strike when the circumstances are favorable. Jung also taught us that what we repress does not disappear. It simply becomes a force that acts upon us from the shadows. Unquestioning kindness is a form of repression, one that allows others unknowingly to act as the shadow upon us. When we choose to be good with everyone, we let the dark forces of manipulation seep in without resistance. Awakening coldness is learning to recognize when it is time to set boundaries, when it is time to stop exposure and not give in to the false need for acceptance. Coldness is, in this sense, the ultimate form of self-definition, of owning oneself without asking permission. This process is not for the weak. Those who do not dare face their shadow will be trapped by the same manipulations they once despised. True strength lies in the ability to operate from the shadow without fear, without regret. It is here where power hides. Coldness is the art of maintaining control without showing it, of influencing without being obvious. In this game of psychological power, those who know when to show distance, when not to be good, are the ones who truly dominate the scene. Kindness in its purest and blindest form is a luxury that not everyone can afford. Instead, power lies in calculated coldness, in the wisdom of knowing when to withdraw and when to attack. Doctrine 2. The process of individuation. Individuation is a dark journey, a descent into the depths of the human psyche, where we confront the most visceral and hidden aspects of our existence. This process is not for those who fear the shadows, nor for those who wish to remain in the constant light of superficiality. By integrating every facet of our being, including the shadow, we face the most unshakable truth. Not everyone who crosses our path deserves our warmth, our kindness, or our vulnerability. This awakening to the truth is the first step to awakening coldness, a self-defense mechanism that arises from the need to protect our deepest essence from those who only seek to feed off it without understanding its value. In the process of individuation, the soul sheds its masks, the facades imposed by society to meet others' expectations. Kindness, that virtue many revere, reveals itself as a trap, a cog in the social wheel that drags us into complacency. True authenticity is not in giving everything, not in sacrificing ourselves without measure, but in recognizing what we truly are and learning to preserve it. Coldness, in this sense, becomes a conscious act of self-definition, a psychological barrier that prevents others from taking what we have worked so hard to discover, our true nature. Not everyone is prepared to receive the entirety of our being. Many, unable to understand the depth of our psyche, will take advantage of our kindness. Coldness, then, becomes a form of discernment, a strategic tool within the individuation process, allowing us to draw clear lines between those who deserve our energy and those who only seek our weakness. Learning to be selective, to not open the doors of our being completely to everyone, is an act of personal power. It is knowing when to yield and when to stand firm, when to offer the intimacy of our soul and when to keep it safe in the shadows where our true power resides. This process is not easy nor comfortable. Awakening coldness is embracing the solitude of self-definition, recognizing that being good with everyone is not a virtue, but a form of slavery. It is the death of false altruism, the rejection of blind kindness. Coldness is an act of sovereignty, a calculated decision that does not depend on the fear of rejection or the need for acceptance, but on the firm understanding that our energy and our essence are too valuable to be wasted. Only those who have walked through the abyss of their own psyche, who have embraced their shadow and shed their social masks, can truly awaken to this hidden power. Coldness, then, is not just a refuge, but a manifestation of power, a defense erected to protect the most intimate parts of our being. By confronting the depths of our being, we discover that true strength lies in the ability to be selective with our emotions, with the energy we pour into others. Unquestioning kindness, that impulsive act of pleasing everyone, is a poison disguised as virtue. By recognizing the need to set boundaries, to apply coldness in our relationships, we are taking control of what is ours. Coldness is not the absence of emotion, it is control over them. It is the ability to decide when to show warmth and when to maintain distance, to use our energy only for those who truly value it, without the need to gain their approval. In the process of individuation, this ability to discern becomes the cornerstone of our self-definition. The path to individuation involves a constant disillusionment with others' expectations. Society teaches us that we must be kind, generous, always ready to give, without questioning the cost. But when we take the time to delve into our being, we understand that true generosity comes from self-understanding, from the awareness that giving without discernment is an act of emotional suicide. Awakening coldness is freeing ourselves from the chains of false kindness and understanding that not everyone is at the same level of awareness. By realizing this, we become guardians of our energy, wisely choosing who is granted the right to approach our essence. Coldness is not just a defense mechanism, it is a form of balance. By integrating our shadow, we accept the duality inherent in all human beings. Light and darkness coexist, and it is in this balance where we find true power. Those who refuse to accept the shadow fall into the trap of complacency, seeking to please everyone while being devoured by others' demands. Coldness, on the other hand, is the ability to remain whole, to stay intact amidst external pressures, without losing our authenticity. In the process of individuation, coldness becomes a reflection of personal integrity, an invisible wall that protects us without the need to show weakness. The awakening to coldness is, therefore, an act of awakening to our true inner strength. There is no strength in pleasing others, only in being true to oneself. By setting firm boundaries, by learning to say no without remorse, we approach a deep understanding of what it truly means to be free. Coldness allows us to cut the ties that bind us to external approval, giving us the power to decide when and how we present ourselves to the world. This conscious choice to protect our energy, to not be good with everyone, is an act of autonomy. In individuation, the individual becomes the architect of their own psyche, choosing which parts of themselves they wish to share and which they prefer to keep in the shadows, where their true power resides. Doctrine 3. The archetype of the hero and the anti-hero. In the depths of the collective unconscious where the archetypal forces reside, there are two figures that stand out, the hero and the anti-hero. The first is one who fights for a noble purpose, guided by virtue and honor. The second, the anti-hero, is a much darker, more complex being, a reflection of the part of us that society rejects and fears. While the hero seeks to be adored, the anti-hero embraces his darkness and moves in the shadows, aware that true power lies in the ability not to depend on external approval. The anti-hero, in his calculated coldness, knows that the fight for what is right does not always require goodness. In fact, in the real world, it is often the coldest, those who refrain from showing sympathy, who truly prevail. By awakening coldness, one begins to realize that not everyone in life deserves our kindness. The hero, though honorable, is chained to the need for acceptance, always seeking public glory. The anti-hero, on the other hand, moves with a darker, more calculated purpose. He does not seek applause or admiration from others. His struggle is internal. His search is for power and control over his own destiny, without the need to submit to social expectations. In the coldness of the anti-hero, there is a disturbing wisdom. Only those who are able to remain distant, who do not get trapped by the illusion of blind kindness, can truly shape the world around them. Coldness, in this context, becomes a tool of self-definition, a shield that allows the individual to move through chaos without losing their authenticity. Jung understood that within us coexist both forces, the hero and the anti-hero. Both archetypes represent two ways of confronting life, two choices that mark the path toward personal fulfillment. While the hero follows the traditional path of virtue and self-sacrifice, the anti-hero takes a darker, less traveled path, where morality and kindness are not guiding principles. The anti-hero is the one who distances himself from the need to please, who understands that power is not gained by being loved, but by being relentless. In the coldness of the anti-hero lies a deep understanding. True strength does not come from benevolence, but from the ability to act without attachment, without the need for validation. Awakening coldness, then, is not simply rejecting kindness, but accepting the archetype of the anti-hero within oneself. The anti-hero is the one who does not need society's approval or validation from others. His power lies in the ability to be independent, to walk alone through darkness and shadows without fear, without regret. The anti-hero is not manipulated by external expectations because he knows that the price of acceptance is the loss of oneself. This awakening, this embracing of coldness, becomes the first step toward total liberation. By rejecting the need to be good with everyone, one begins to walk the same path as the anti-hero, a path marked by independence, strategy, and above all, the relentless coldness that allows one to maintain control over their own destiny. Doctrine 4. The Inferiority Complex. The inferiority complex is a shadow that crawls through the depths of the human psyche, feeding on insecurity and the need for external approval. This complex is an underground current that manipulates thoughts, emotions, and actions, pushing the individual to believe that their worth lies solely in what others think of them. It is a subtle poison, an invisible chain that binds the person to servile complacency, always seeking validation, always sacrificing their own being on the altar of others' acceptance. Excessive kindness, the constant effort to please, are the clearest manifestations of this complex, which keeps the individual in a perpetual state of emotional submission, where the fear of rejection determines every action. Awakening coldness is the act of shedding these chains. It is an act of internal rebellion, where one confronts the shadow of the inferiority complex and decides to reject it. Instead of seeking approval from others, one begins to embrace the darkness within, recognizing that true value is not found in what others think, but in the ability to be oneself, without the need for justification. Coldness becomes a shield, a barrier that protects the deepest essence, preventing the inferiority complex from infiltrating and controlling the psyche. By adopting this coldness, the individual empowers themselves, freeing themselves from the slavery of external validation and taking control of their own emotional destiny. Jung's dark psychology leaves no room for the illusion that blind kindness can save us. True strength lies in recognizing our own needs, our own desires, and acting in accordance with them, regardless of others' opinions. Coldness is the manifestation of that emotional autonomy. It is the ability to cut the ties that bind us to external approval. By awakening this coldness, one leaves behind the constant struggle to be good with everyone and faces the painful yet liberating truth. Not everyone deserves our energy, and not everyone has the right to influence our identity. The inferiority complex keeps us in the dark, in the false belief that our value depends on what others think of us. By awakening coldness, that darkness dissipates. We no longer need to be approved. We no longer seek sympathy from those who do not understand our essence. In the process of individuation, Jung teaches us that authenticity is not found in complacency, but in the courage to show ourselves as we are, with our light and our shadow, without fear of rejection. Coldness becomes a protective force, a declaration of independence that allows us to live on our own terms, without being bound to others' opinions. Thus, by breaking the chains of the inferiority complex, we become masters of our own psyche, capable of shaping our existence without depending on external acceptance. Doctrine 5. The Effect of Projection. Projection is a dark veil that covers the eyes of consciousness, an insidious distortion that prevents us from seeing the world as it truly is. It is a deep psychological mechanism, an unconscious defense that leads people to project their own desires, fears, and unresolved deficiencies onto others. What we cannot accept in ourselves, we see in others, and this distorted vision of the world manipulates us, controlling our emotions, our decisions, and ultimately our identity. When we are excessively kind, we are projecting more than a virtue. We are projecting our need for acceptance, to be seen and appreciated, as if our worth depended on the gaze of others. In this state of emotional dependence, we become slaves to the expectations we project, unable to act authentically. Awakening coldness is, in essence, an act of breaking away from this projection. It is recognizing that excessive kindness is not a genuine act, but a response to the need to be validated, a way to keep ourselves safe from external judgment. Coldness, far from being an emotional void, is a space of clarity where we can see beyond others' projections. By stopping ourselves from giving everything, by being selective with our energy, we begin to deactivate the illusions we have created, both in ourselves and in others. Coldness allows us to see the world with clear eyes, without the distortions that prevent us from recognizing the real intentions of those around us. We stop being puppets of others' projections and start acting from a place of authentic power. Jung's dark psychology invites us to see that, at the root of our kindness, there is often fear. Fear of rejection, fear of loneliness, fear of not being enough. When we project these fears onto others, we make them an extension of our insecurities. Coldness is the tool to cut this bond. It is the ability to retain who we are, to not give ourselves to others without questioning, without analyzing whether they truly deserve it. Learning to be cold is learning to be aware of these projections and freeing ourselves from their influence. It is an act of self-definition, of taking control of our emotions and our energy, so that others cannot take them without question. Projection also leads us to believe that others are responsible for our emotions, that our reactions are caused by their actions. But when we awaken coldness, we realize that in reality, it is us who give them the power. When we project, we give our ability to respond to the outside world, allowing others to handle our psyche like a puppeteer handles the strings of a puppet. Coldness, then, is the taking of power over our reactions. By not being good with everyone, by not projecting our insecurities onto others, we become immune to their manipulations. We are masters of our emotions and, therefore, of our destiny. Coldness is the armor that protects us from the projections others try to impose on us, a psychological shield that allows us to act from authenticity without falling into the emotional traps that the world constantly sets for us. Doctrine 6, the persona. The persona is the mask that we all wear to interact with the world, a carefully crafted social construct designed to fit others' expectations. It is the face we show to the outside world, the facade that allows us to be accepted, loved, and understood. But within that mask, in that facade, we become to please. We lose our essence. The persona is not who we truly are. It is a role we play, a superficial adaptation that forces us to hide our shadows, our imperfections, and our true intentions. Jung understood the nature of this mask and warned about the danger of identifying completely with it, because in doing so, we are dragged into an empty existence, a life of complacency and falseness where we are no longer ourselves, but only a projection of what others expect us to be. Being good with everyone is often the result of this identification with the persona. It is a desperate attempt to please, to fit in, to avoid rejection at all costs, but that kindness is not genuine. It is a conditioned response driven by fear and insecurity. It is the persona taking control, not the authentic self. The need to please becomes an internal tyrant, a force that keeps us captive in an endless cycle of sacrifice, without ever recognizing our true nature. By living to fulfill others' expectations, we lose ourselves, strip ourselves of authenticity, and become slaves to an image that is not ours. Coldness arises when we become aware of this process, when we recognize that the persona we show is nothing more than a facade, a construct to survive in a world that demands conformity. Awakening coldness is the first step to freeing ourselves from the tyranny of the persona. It is the moment when we remove the mask and stop worrying about pleasing everyone. It is the bold decision to be authentic, to live by our own rules, to act from within, without the need for external validation. Coldness is not the absence of emotions, but the ability to act with control and clarity, without letting others' expectations manipulate us. It is the strength that allows us to distance ourselves from the demands of the outside world, to reconfigure our lives according to our own essence. We no longer have to be good with everyone. Coldness teaches us to discern, to understand that not everyone deserves our energy or our kindness. It is the awakening of authenticity, the acceptance of our shadow, and the liberation from the need to please others. Jung showed us that the persona can be useful for social interaction, but when we completely identify with it, we are condemned to live in constant denial of who we truly are. Coldness arises when we face this uncomfortable truth, when we see ourselves without the masks we have created. By removing the persona, we face our darkness, our authenticity, and free ourselves from the pressure to be accepted. Coldness is not a cold and insensitive reaction, but an affirmation of our own existence, of our ability to act without the burden of external judgment. It is the recognition that we do not need others' approval to be complete, that our authenticity, our inner strength, is the only thing that truly matters. By awakening coldness, we take control of our lives, free ourselves from the masquerade, and become what we were always destined to be, authentic beings, masters of our energy, relentless in the face of others' expectations. Doctrine 7. The collective unconscious. The collective unconscious is an ancestral entity, an invisible network that connects all of humanity, storing in its darkest corners the universal archetypes that have been forged over centuries. These are primordial images, symbols that have emerged from the shadows of the collective psyche, from the wise observer to the rebel who challenges all established order. These archetypes, residing deep within our psyche, are the echoes of the fears, desires, and powerful forces that we all share, even though we often fail to recognize them. The wise one, the rebel, the warrior, the hero, the shadow, these figures are not just concepts. They are the invisible actors that drive our decisions, our emotions, and our actions, far beyond our conscious awareness. Coldness arises when one becomes aware of this dark network, when one understands that these archetypes not only govern us, but also grant us the power to act more strategically, free from the need for approval that subjugates us. The wise one does not seek acceptance. His power lies in his ability to observe without getting involved, in his detachment from the trivialities of everyday life. The rebel, on the other hand, challenges the system not because he cares about others' judgment, but because his strength lies in his independence of thought. By connecting with these archetypes, by awakening the coldness that arises from ancient wisdom, one stops being a puppet to others' emotions and begins to adopt a more strategic posture. The need to please, to be good with everyone, is an illusion created by society. The awareness of these archetypes allows us to see the world through a clearer lens, where others' emotional manipulation no longer has power over us. Coldness, then, is not a cold and distant reaction, but a conscious choice to align ourselves with these archetypal forces that allow us to operate in the shadows without showing vulnerability. The collective unconscious gives us access to a deeper understanding of human nature. By awakening coldness, we free ourselves from the bonds of superficiality, learning to move cautiously, with a cool mind, like the wise one who knows that every action has consequences, but is not affected by them. It is in this state of awareness that we can recognize the projections others try to impose on us, manipulate situations to our advantage, and act in a calculated way. Coldness is the art of operating without the need for emotional connection, of acting from a place of power. And this is achieved by understanding the archetypes that exist in the collective mind. These archetypes, far from being limitations, are open doors to a more strategic way of life, where external approval becomes irrelevant. The archetypes of the collective unconscious have no time or space. They are timeless forces that transcend generations. By awakening coldness, one connects with a primordial wisdom, an ancestral power that allows one to live beyond social restrictions. The rebel does not worry about being good with everyone. His strength lies in rejecting that need. The wise one is not affected by emotions because he has learned to operate from silence and observation. Coldness, in this context, is the connection with the deepest parts of our psyche, with those archetypal forces that allow us to transcend the expectations of the external world. By adopting coldness, we align ourselves with the power of these archetypes, becoming strategists, observers, beings who control the game without having to show our cards. The collective unconscious becomes our ally, allowing us to take control of our life with unwavering determination. Doctrine 8. The desire for power and control. The desire for power is a deep impulse, hidden in the shadows of the human psyche, driving our darkest actions, our most calculated decisions. Although Carl Jung did not explicitly link coldness to power, his understanding of inner control reveals a disturbing truth. Power is not always shown, shouted, or sought through open domination. True power is the one that operates in the shadows, the one that doesn't need to be announced to be effective. Coldness, in this sense, becomes an act of control. Control over oneself and, more importantly, over the social interactions around us. By not being good with everyone, by not giving in to the insatiable need to please, one becomes the master of their own energy, not allowing others to drain or manipulate it. Coldness is not an empty indifference. It is a deep strategy that protects inner power, allowing one to preserve their essence while moving subtly through social complexities. The need for control is inherent in human nature, a primal desire to shape the environment according to our will. But control is not achieved through submission or complacency. Those who surrender without discernment, who seek approval at any cost, gradually lose their power until they become slaves to others' expectations. Coldness becomes the antidote to this loss of power. By not being good with everyone, by maintaining a strategic distance, personal energy is preserved. An invisible wall is created that protects our essence, preventing others from entering our emotional space without permission. In this space, self-control is strengthened, as one does not rely on social interactions to define their worth. It is an act of personal sovereignty, a declaration that our emotions, thoughts, and decisions are ours and will not be shaped by external demands. Power is not always exhibited ostentatiously. True strength lies in the ability to influence without showing signs of weakness, in the ability to control without needing to prove it. By awakening coldness, one moves away from emotional surface, shedding the need to demonstrate affection, sympathy, or kindness to everyone. Instead, a subtle influence is cultivated, silent but potent, not based on explicit affection, but on the ability to remain firm, calculating, and strategic. Those who possess power without displaying it are the ones who have learned to operate from the shadows, manipulating others' emotions without getting caught in them. They understand that true strength does not come from blind empathy, but from the ability to maintain internal control, preserve their energy, and use it only when they truly deem it necessary. By not being good with everyone, one begins to master social interactions, not from a place of disdain, but from a deep understanding of human dynamics. Coldness is a form of self-defense, but also a form of personal affirmation. It is the act of not yielding to others' emotional demands, of not allowing their need for approval to interfere with our internal stability. This internal discipline, this ability to distance oneself, strengthens our capacity to influence without others even noticing. Coldness becomes the vehicle for keeping power in our hands without the need for explicit manipulation. In this domain, control is not a struggle, but a constant stance, a reminder that true power lies in the ability to remain calm, to act from within, without being swept away by others' emotions. By awakening coldness, we become the invisible architects of our interactions, moving the pieces in silence, without needing to show our strength. Here are 2 more videos that will give you a high rank in psychological power. Go check them out.